Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, for your leadership and for the class, decorum, and fairness that you exhibit every day in this role. Housing is a fundamental human right. Yet across the country and in my district, the Massachusetts 7th, millions of people do not have access to a safe, decent, and affordable place to call home. For decades, Black families have been locked out of home ownership opportunities due to discriminatory lending, and now private equity-backed institutional landlords have pushed this dream even further out of reach by gobbling up single-family homes and worsening the housing crisis across this country. Ms. Pope, the five largest single-family rental companies own almost 300,000 homes. Now, what are the consequences when institutional investors purchase these homes in bulk, often in cash, and how are they worsening housing affordability and forcing would-be home buyers into the rental market?
Thank you for the question. Let me start and say again, when lenders hesitate, to lend to low balance mortgages, that means lower properties that's in neighborhoods buyers can't purchase when they're hesitating. And what that does, it opens up the doors, as I stated earlier, for investors who pay cash. They buy in bulks, the properties for less money, then there's wholesaling. It displaces the residents and it creates low inventory for the neighborhood. So when you have these cash buyers, the cash investors, and a homeowner can't have that American dream because they're bought out of a cash deal, it makes it very difficult. Then they have to go back and try to rebid on properties. Number one, that makes it harder because now they're against many buyers who then are pricing higher than is normalcy, which pushes them out the market. It brings them into a mode where they have to rent because many of them are in a situation where the rental market is getting ready or their rents are getting ready to either increase or it's getting ready to end. So they have to either re-sign that lease another year. So it does stop a lot of provision from Black homeowners into buying homes.
Thank you. And Ms. Pope, most of these homes these institutional investors are buying up are in predominantly Black neighborhoods. So yes or no, based on what you are seeing, is the influx of institutional investors and cash buyers driving up home prices in predominantly Black communities, yes or no?
Yes.
And home buyers, Ms. Pope, are not the only ones impacted. Are these communities seeing rents go up as well as a result?
Absolutely.
And Ms. Pope, would you say that institutional investors are accelerating gentrification of communities of color and displacing low-income residents?
Yes.
Thank you. That is exactly what I've been hearing from people in cities across my district, like Cambridge and Boston, where rents have risen by 30 and 27% higher than last year, respectively. This is unsustainable, and my most vulnerable constituents are drowning financially because they cannot afford these rent increases. This hearing is about home ownership. But right now, home ownership isn't even feasible for many in my district who are being squeezed by predatory rent hikes imposed by institutional investors. Mr. Calhoun, you mentioned in your testimony that broad student debt cancellation would help address the racial home ownership gap. I agree. What other policies will provide relief to tenants facing unsustainable rent increases?
Again, a couple of things. We have to increase the supply of affordable rental housing as well. And then one of the provisions that expired in January, the children's tax credit. I mean, one of the things we talk about homeownership producing wealth, it's also a manifestation of people's existing wealth and existing financial security. Another thing is actually there's recent Federal Reserve research that shows that expansion of Medicaid increases not just general financial security, but home ownership. Again, what you've talked about, putting people in a stable financial position so that they can either securely rent or purchase a home. And if I may, I'd like to give a shout out to two programs that we need to lift up that have come out of Massachusetts. That is where one of the largest first generation targeting programs was implemented that was the basis for Chairwoman Waters' provision. And also it has one of the largest statewide income loss insurance programs, which again, we need those kinds of new approaches to provide efficient ways to address these housing problems.
Thank you. I was trying not to be too parochial or boastful, but I appreciate your lifting up those successful models. And again, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, once again for your steadfast leadership.